one or more Twitter so-called breaking news sites that we know to be affiliated with the Russian point of view, if not full-on funding. And it's fascinating, though depressing to watch. Right now, they're into attacking vaccines. If someone gets a cough after the AstraZeneca vaccine, they will point it out. As you have pointed out on this broadcast, a sick adversary is easier to have your way with than a well adversary. The Russians also have an interest in getting their vaccine to market in Europe. So tell our viewers how to be better consumers of what they see. This disinformation campaign is not going to go away because our government has mentioned it in a report.
No, it's not going to go away at all. And this is going to take a complete re-engineering of American cyber hygiene. And I think that by the changing of the administrations, we've taken the first step. One of the things that is absolutely abhorrent to the other channels which have a more propagandistic leaning in the United States and which are operated by Russia Today, which is adored by many people on the right wing in the United States, is the very fact that they craft a message which is negative to the United States, but positive to Donald Trump and positive to Russia. And it all goes to their strategic goals. Look, Vladimir Putin was a career KGB officer, not for a reason. He believed in what the Soviet Union believed. Now he believes in money. But he never let go of the strategic goals of dismantling liberal democracy. He himself said liberal democracy is finished and that they need to foster autocracy around the world. The Republican Party agrees with this. So all the messaging that you're going to see from overseas and the messaging that they amplify in the United States to hurt America will always have this message. And one last point, Brian. We may actually be able to see a direct arc from this report to the shooting that happened in Atlanta today, because the Chinese sat back and were looking for stability. But the Russians have been amplifying the message from the Trump administration that all liberals are members of the Communist Chinese Party and that the Chinese attacked us and that we saw this multifold attack on Asian citizens in the United States. It is incestuous and it is all connected.
Claire McCaskill, back we jump into the cesspool of politics in Washington, D.C. Though you've done nothing to deserve this, please join us in watching your buddy Mitch McConnell from Today. We'll talk about it on the other side.
Nobody serving in this chamber can even begin to imagine what a completely scorched earth Senate would look like. Everything that Democrat Senates did to Presidents Bush and Trump, everything the Republican Senate did to President Obama, would be child's play compared to the disaster that Democrats would create for their own priorities if they break the Senate.
So, Claire McCaskill, is that a fancy and a threatening way of saying to the Democrats on this filibuster argument, be careful what you wish for?
Well, that's what he's trying to do. But I've got news for Mitch McConnell. He kind of broke the Senate. He's the one that has used the rules in a way they were never intended to be used. And he has done it with gleeful abandon over and over and over again. And the Senate has become broken. Regular order is gone. There's not debate. There's not amendments. It is just a mere shadow of what it used to be. So the question is, should you have to stand up and own your obstructionism? He's bragging here that they would be the ultimate obstructionists if there's any reform of the filibuster. Well, that's not going to be a very smart thing to do politically. That's not going to garner him the hearts and minds of American voters. That's not going to win the day for the Republican Party. So a lot of this is an empty threat. But the bottom line is we need to reform a process so that if somebody wants to obstruct, they own it, and that the American people can see who's doing it and figure out why, and then make their judgment on Election Day. And I don't think that will turn out well for Mitch McConnell's party.
Phil Rucker, his phone interview with Fox News tonight, Trump seemed to have a rare moment of candor talking about the drive for voting rights in the Democratic Party versus all the voter suppression we're seeing in so many states across the country. He said, in effect, it's going to be really hard to get Republicans elected if the Democrats are successful. What's the chance that he is joining forces with Republicans on this issue we know he cares about for all the wrong reasons?
You know, Brian, I assume he's on board with the Republicans on this issue. And by the way, this is not a new issue for the Republican Party or for former President Trump. It's been part of the strategy for Republicans going back at least a generation to try to use their majorities in certain state legislatures, to use the law, to use the courts, to find ways to effectively make it more difficult for working people and people of color to vote in certain states in this country. Trump tried to great effect in 2016 and again in 2020 in his campaign to do what he could to enact those restrictions. And what you saw in a state like Georgia, for example, is the power on the other side in blocking a lot of those efforts and driving up registration and getting to the people to the polls despite what Republican leaders in those states were doing to try to prevent that. And that's the dynamic we're going to see playing out here over the next 2 years heading into the 2022 midterm elections. But certainly, I think we can expect to see former President Trump leading the Republican charge there.
Our big three guests on this Tuesday night: Philip Rucker, Claire McCaskill,